Oda left us with quite a bombshell of a final chapter for 2023. This whole backstory with Kuma and Bonney, I have to say, is one of the best backstory slash flashbacks we've ever gotten for the entire manga of One Piece. Now, this could be recency bias because it's the latest chapters, but you're not going to tell me just how emotional these chapters make you feel, because Kuma as a character is very important to the plot of One Piece. He is a character that has been in certain moments that really have kind of been super important for the progression of Luffy and his entire crew, and like he's also indirectly or even directly saved them at moments where they should have just ended up dying. Like, we get a whole new scene, a different viewpoint of Saturn, which is, let's be honest here, top 5 greatest moments of the entire manga, because it's like seeing Luffy having to go through all the issues of, like, he lost his whole crew, you know, he couldn't save any of them, and he just broke down and crying, and eventually led to the whole, he had to go to, you know, Impel Down to save his brother, and then he went to the Whitebeard War, and then everything that happened there, you know, it was all thanks to the events of Sabaody and his actions of attacking a celestial dragon, and then Kuma being the one to separate Luffy's entire crew, and Luffy had to go about the whole ordeal by himself. There's a lot that happened thanks to Kuma, and set up everything going forward, at least after, you know, the Whitebeard War. We can, you know, basically say with post-time skip, thanks to Kuma is why Luffy's crew has accomplished as much as they have done. And so, seeing this entire scene again in a flashback, but from the perspective of Kuma and what he's thinking, makes this scene hit so much harder. Because I think everybody at this point, before we even saw this in the latest chapter, we're already aware that Kuma was probably thinking this, or he didn't want to kill Luffy and his crew or anything like that. He never wanted to, he never wanted to do that, but actually seeing the words attached to his character of saying, like, you know, Luffy, you're not a failure, you know, it's not that you couldn't save any of them, you're not ready and all that, and fleeing them off to different islands around the world. It's honestly emotional, because he was, in his own way, resisting against a force that he couldn't really resist against, aka losing his mind, becoming a cyborg, or a robot in this case, and, you know, having to listen to, you know, the Gorosei, or Saturn, and, you know, carry out his deal with Bonney. There's a lot that really, you know, was going on behind the scenes, and just seeing how he tried every little way to be able to spare Luffy, because he looked at Luffy as the savior, the liberator, which, come to find out now, you know, hundreds of chapters later, yes, Luffy is the liberator, he is Nika and all that, basically reincarnated, and seeing everything here, it fits so perfectly in line with the theme of One Piece and what Luffy as a character is, but also who Kuma is. And let's just get into the whole Bonney stuff in Kuma. This scene in particular, like this final panel for the latest chapter that came out, it really hits, because this is basically the last scene that Kuma as a character ever says. Because as we know, in the current time period, Kuma's gone. You know, his mind is not there anymore. He's a robot. And there might be a possibility maybe one day he could return. We don't know. That's a potential possibility, but it's up in the air. The point of the matter is that his final words before everything went dark for him was, "I wish my daughter to have a very happy 10th birthday." It's sad, because obviously Bonney finally got to see this. She got to look at Kuma's memories and what he was thinking and why he did everything he did like he did, and the sacrifice he made for her and for himself and all that. It's crazy, because, you know, Oda, he's a really good storyteller when it comes to backstories. Like, he makes you feel for characters that, you know are gonna die. Like, let's look at the theme here, okay? When it comes to One Piece, there's always a flashback. There's always a backstory within any important arc. We always have this. It kind of gives us context to why the island or something is very messed up, or why these things are happening the way they are. It's very important, and he's a good storyteller with this, but most of the time when it comes to his flashbacks, the characters within it, we know, are going to die. Kuma, in this case, is a very different element, because he's a character, is technically, his body's still around, he's still alive, but his mind isn't. And seeing that from this perspective, it's a very different take to the normal storytelling that Oda does, and I think it's beautiful, the way it's presented, because it allows us to connect with Bonney and what kind of issues and hurdles she's had to overcome, and the objectives she's had to even become a pirate in the first place, but also why now, thanks to everything that's happened here and seeing the memories of Kuma, you know, she's going to side with Luffy. I mean, Kuma pretty much idolized Nika. He danced and all that. And the fact that, he found Nika after all this time, and it was Luffy, and saved Luffy, and then now Bonnie knows this, and she wanted to find Nika before her own father did. It's just like, holy crap, man. Like, I could see now why people are saying that Bonnie is going to join the Straw Hat crew. It makes perfect sense. I mean, we've been baited before. I mean, we got to think about, Yamato and Carrot and all that. Oda has baited us with Straw Hat crew members, like who's going to join. But I really can see Bonnie joining just because of the whole element of Kuma's entire motivation of why he did the things he did. Now, backing up for a second and talking a little bit more about Kuma, I really just love how he does the best he can as a father. Even though he isn't the biological blood father of Bonnie, the way he steps up to protect her and to make sure her illness is cured is something that I think is just so beautiful, the way it's represented. It's a very simple theme. It is. Like, we have seen stories time and time again in different manga, forms of literature, movies, etc., that have a father or a mother step in to protect their child or to cure them of their illness, and we've seen different forms of this. You have, parents that will do everything they can in their power to sacrifice themselves to save their child. You'll have, parents that will literally do evil, like kill people just to save their child, and then you'll have those parents that will just let their child die. There's different forms of storytelling to this, but I just love how Kuma's storytelling is that, he kept it secret, he kept it to himself, he didn't want to tell Bonnie to ruin it, and he just wanted to wait until the time was right, she could see his memories, and then everything would be cleared up for her. She would understand the sacrifice. And I don't know, it's so beautiful. There's no other word really to describe it. And like this right here, I love Kuma's expression. It's honestly the most human we've really ever seen him, at least in the present era, what he currently looks like. Because when you think of Kuma as a character, every time we've seen him, he's a cyborg. He's robotic. He has, like, light that comes out of his hands and stuff, or mouth, technically. He has paw pads. All these weird things going on with him, and we never really got to see his eyes much until this flashback. And so getting this different side of him as well humanizes him, shows the soul that we never got to see until it was all gone. And it really will make rewatching or rereading One Piece so much more emotional, now knowing the everlasting effects that Kuma had on the story and what he sacrificed for the characters to be where they're at. It's honestly just breathtaking storytelling. And it really goes to show why Vegapunk turned against, the world government. Because it's like, he was a big fan of Kuma. He was a friend. And it kind of is now hinting at more of a, actuality of Kizaru potentially becoming a turncoat. I've seen conversation and theories and stuff on this, but it's definitely seeming more and more likely as, more time goes on and all that, and we get more information on this flashback and finding out more about Kuma and then Vegapunk's relationship with Kizaru and then Dragon and, Sentamaru. It's all making sense now why those characters probably will turn against the Gorosei, Saturn, and all that, which, actually, that's a good segue. I want to talk about Saturn for a second. So Saturn is, oh my goodness, like, where to even begin with that character? We've known Saturn within the story for a very long time. He's an absolute scumbag. He's someone that has been given so much more personality and character now thanks to this arc. And what he's put Kuma and Bonnie through and just so many other people is just sick. I mean, we've known about him since, like, Robin's days, thanks to the whole island being burnt to the ground. But seeing how the character, just how he's playing these sick games with Kuma, trying to turn him into a weapon, wants his personality completely erased, and then finding out more about Bonnie's heritage, I'm starting to believe that Saturn could potentially be Bonnie's father, her real biological father. Now, obviously, this can go any direction. This is not confirmed. This is just headcanon, theory, etc. But, I mean, when you think about all the things that are being presented with these chapters, it definitely implies that maybe the Gorosei, or at least Saturn, was the one that, was the father of Bonnie and then gave her away. Because we know Bonnie is the daughter of a celestial dragon. And we don't know who that celestial dragon is. That is still up in the air. Still, we don't really know a name attached to it. But judging by Saturn's overall complicated relationship with the story and Bonnie and Kuma, I believe that Saturn is the father. Now, once again, if it's not real, It happens. I'm not going to be upset about it, but it definitely feels like that is the direction Oda is taking the story, which make a lot more sense why Saturn seems so hell-bent on really just tarnishing Kuma's legacy and turning him into basically a mindless robot, showcasing like, yeah, it doesn't matter how good you are, or free will, etc., you'll have none at the end, and all that showcasing power is above all else, and really just tarnishing a man that was willing to go as far as he could for his foster daughter. But, yeah, I don't know, man. One Piece has just been outright great as of late. I mean, it's always good, but, like, this flashback, honestly, some of the best piece of storytelling, I think, in a long while for One Piece. I really enjoyed Egghead, and I cannot wait to hear the voice acting for how Kuma's gonna sound, Bonnie's gonna sound when the anime finally gets to this. And, getting back into that, the controversy a few days with the whole art style change, I really do think the softer tones of the art style is really going to suit this so much, especially because the flashback kind of takes us back to pre-time skip era, and that art style kind of looks like, pre-time skip. I think it's very fitting, honestly. But I'm going to leave it at that. I wanted to talk about this before the year wraps up. One Piece has been absolutely amazing this year, and especially these chapters. I felt like it would be a disservice not to mention or talk about it, especially just how much on a roll Oda Sensei's been. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. It does help me out a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. You all have a happy holiday. Chibi out.